Yeah, so thanks a lot, Yasheng, for joining for this interview series. And let's directly get started. So can you perhaps briefly introduce yourself?
Sure, sure. I'm Yashong Xie. I get my PhD from Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. After I graduated, I joined the Department of Computer Science in Princeton University as a postdoc. So I'm on the market this year, and now I get an offer from SUNY Buffalo, and I will join Buffalo, I think, next January. Yeah,
Okay,
at the end
great.
of this year, due to some visa issues.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I mean, first of all, congratulations to the offer. And since you
Thanks,
already
thanks.
mentioned the visa issues, do you feel comfortable with sharing this? Because I think also many other people that go to the US are often confronted by these kind of issues.
Yeah, sure, definitely.
Mm.
So I think the visa issues is different for people from different countries, but people from China. So because I'm doing postdoc and I am using the J1 visa. So for the J1 visa, you have like this 2-year requirement, which means you have to go back to your own country and stay there for 2 years. So I have that requirement, but you can waive that. Uh, you can waive that requirement. However, like the policy changes by, I'm not sure it's by the U.S. government or by the China embassy, that if you want to waive the J1 visa, you have to find your next job, which means your next like employer will support you to waive that, which means I have to go through all the process, get the supporting letter from like my next university, then I can waive. And the waive takes a lot of time.
I see.
So for example, if I accept the offer in like say like March, let's say it's very early, and January, and you need to prepare the document and then you can submit it. And the waiving process takes it's random, right? It takes 3 months, 4 months, half a year, like you don't know. So my situation is that my contract ends in August, so I have to renew my contract. Otherwise, I need to go back to China and then apply the waiver, and then reapply the university will apply H1B visa for me, and then um, I will go to the U.S. embassy in China and apply the H1B visa to enter the U.S. That's fine if everything like in a normal time, but in during the pandemic, apply the H1B visa from the US embassy, you need to wait another like maybe half a year because they will check. Like I heard a lot of cases like they stay in like they go back to China. Like some of my friends who is also professors, like they go back to China to visit friend and they apply H1B. They already have H1B visa, but they just want to apply the visa to enter US. They need to wait. I think some of them wait for half a year and longer.
Oh,
So
well.
if I do that, I will. It's possible that I will miss the the January deadline to join the university, and there's a lot of uncertainty. So I don't want to do that. So I renewed my contract, and if I renew my contract, I will get a new DS 2019 because my DS 2019 also expires. So I need to wait, and I need to use my new DS 2019 to apply the waiver, because if you have a new DS 2019 and you didn't waive it, then you need to waive it again. And in most cases, the embassy will only waive you once. So there's a lot of complicated things. So in the end, the conclusion is that I have to wait. I have to miss my fall. Like I cannot join the university in this fall. I need to renew my contract and join in January. And I hope I can finish all the process during the half year, like J1 wave and applying for the H1B visa, and two things in a row. They have to do sequentially.
Oh, well,
So
that
that's the
sounds
reason. It's a quite
sounds quite
complicated.
complicated. And you almost already seem like an immigration lawyer. You know that?
You have to know all these kind of yeah. And my situation is even complicated, like even more complicated, because I renew my contract and my DS 2019. That's the documentation for you to legally stay in US, and my and that piece of document of me also expired, so I need to also renew that, right? So, and if I didn't renew that, I cannot apply for my waiver. So I'm still waiting for the university to finish to renew my contract. I can get my new DS 2019. I think, like, for example, if you only need to renew your contract, that's easy. Your DS 2019 is still valid. For example, for another 1 year, then you can do it faster because you just renew your contract. You don't need to care about your contract. You just do the waiver. But I need to care about my contract because I need to get my new DS 2019. So yeah,
Okay.
I did a lot of Google and find out how to do that. A lot of complicated stuff. Yeah.
I see. And do you also have some support like from the university, or do you have some immigration lawyers or anything, or did you just do everything by yourself?
I think mostly I do it myself, just Google and ask questions in different forums. But I do talk to lawyers from universities that I'm going to join, and also also I talk to the Davis Center. That is the Center for International Scholars in Princeton. I scheduled a one-on-one meeting with some officers in there. They know this situation quite well. So I also asked for advices, but I think they didn't know too much about what you should do if you have something in between, like my DS 2019 expires. But they can give you some affirmative answers about, like, okay, yes, you should update your DS 2019, or you should waive your visa before you can apply H1B, this kind of answers. But for the details, they don't know. So I did that part on Google search, because
Understand.
some
Okay.
people also have the same situation. So I contact them, and yeah, we just help each other because they also have similar situations. I think there's a lot of Chinese in US, so they have a lot of different cases. So we can find someone in the same situation. So I'm not sure for other for people from other like countries, because there's one advice: if you can do it earlier, like if your embassy doesn't have the requirement that you should have your next job ready, then you can do the J1 waiver like much earlier, like maybe 1 year earlier than your final job. Then you already have the J1 waiver, then you can immediately start your H1B like application process. So that, I think that depends on the embassy, or maybe it's just a normalcy for everyone. I'm not sure, but for China, yes.
I see. Yeah, I'm actually also not so sure about the requirement depending on the country and so on. But yeah, I think it's very insightful also in the sense that I guess it's something that everyone has to keep in mind, right? That there are some visa regulations, some work permit regulations, and you should
Yes.
investigate them as soon as possible to avoid this kind of like any kind of surprises.
Yeah, I think, yeah, there shouldn't be any surprises, like suddenly you find out something like that blocks your like process. I think I know that very well, because want to I want to start this process earlier, but I heard from a lot of people who just left like Princeton for the industry or for like research lab. They told me that, and I also read the regulations or the notice from the Chinese embassy. They say that when you submit the material, you should have like the reason why you want to apply it. The reason includes like some letter from your next employees. So some people try that. For example, I know I was going to apply a academic job. I want to study it earlier, so I studied without the supporting letter or whatever from my next employee. They submit all the material, and the embassy returns it, saying that, oh, you like you don't have a valid reason in general why you want to apply this. So yeah, so if your embassy, like if you are from a different country, your embassy doesn't have that requirement, you should do it as early as possible. Yeah, if you are using J1 visa.
Okay, makes sense, and sounds a bit frustrating, the experience, but yeah, hope fingers crossed that everything goes well now.
Yeah, hopefully.
So I'm also curious, you mentioned that you're currently a postdoc at Princeton, and do you just want to briefly tell us, like, how did you get this position? Like, how did you approach, for example, your postdoc advisor?
Sure. I think my situation is also maybe not that general. I work with my current supervisor like for a long time. I think I worked with him in 2000 around 13 or 14. So we have been working together for like 7 years or 8 years right now for now. So our collaboration starts in when I was a PhD, and when I was about to graduate, actually my supervisor asked me like, do you want to come to Princeton and do postdoc with me? So I just directly said yes. So we did an interview, and I promised him that, okay, if you give me the offer, I would definitely join. And then he gave me the offer, then I joined. So it's quite smooth.
I see. Yeah, nice that it worked out like this.
Yeah, so it's just some from the collaboration developed into a position. Yeah.
Yeah, when you introduced yourself, you didn't yet talk about your research direction. So can you also shortly outline like what's your current research focus or research focus in general?
Yeah. I think broadly speaking, I think I work on the intersection between computer networks and computer systems. I think I mainly focus on wireless networks, wireless network systems, and previously I do a lot of like sensing stuff, like and communication stuff. Right now, I mainly focus on 5G networks and the application built on 5G networks, like how do you do video conferencing, like on top of wireless networks, especially 5G networks, and how do you like developer protocols, like computer protocols in the transport layer and the application layer, so that you can work better, your application can or system can work better on those highly like um like highly, I would say like those networks whose capacity varies significantly, which is quite different from the wired network. That's my current focus.
I see. Okay. And regarding the University of Buffalo, so can you perhaps also shortly explain what kind of institution it is? I mean, for example, it's a public R1 university, right? So can you just briefly explain what this means?
I think in Buffalo, the full name is like SUNY Buffalo. SUNY means State University of New York. So it's you can tell from the name that it's a public university of New York State. So and it's our R1 university. R1 university is so there's some institution. They divide university into R1, R2, and these different categories. R1 means the institution that involves in extremely highly like research activities. So generally, it's a university with like a lot of research high quality research activities. And I think the computer science from that university is quite strong. It has a lot of, I think, well, like well established professors, and a main reason why I choose to join is also because they have a lot of professors working in my area, like I think in wireless networks, mobile computing, related area. So I can find a lot of professors there, and I also know a lot of people from there in person. And I think that's maybe one reason I got the offer, and that's also maybe the reason I choose to join.
Makes sense. Okay. And can you give us a general kind of overview of this interviewing season for you? So what was the timeline? What was the process, just very roughly?
Sure. I think it's quite so. I think in general, this year market is very um, tough.
Yeah,
So
that's what I've heard.
I start, especially US, the competition is extremely brutal. I start my process in like I think from September last year, like 2020. So I think I start from there, and I finished my documentation before um I think before October,
Mm.
because the deadline for a lot of universities are like October, November, and December. I think that's generally the deadline for the applications. So we have to submit our application before that deadline. So I think I submit my application to quite a few universities. Maybe I would say like around 30.
Mm.
Um, I did something more because we are from the computer networks and especially wireless networks. So there's not a lot of openings um, that hire students or hire like in these directions. So I almost submit like all these positions that are relevant. I know maybe it's not very relevant, and so I submit. I start hearing news like in February. So it's actually kind of late, but I don't know. But I just began to hear news from February, and I think I began my interviews from March, and I almost finished my interviews in April. Oh no, yeah, April.
Yeah, that sounds relatable.
So yeah, I think I finished all my interviews in before the middle of April, and then I just made my decision like soon after that.
Mhm. And all of the interviews were held remotely over Zoom and this kind of platforms, or did you also have any kind of in-person ones?
Of course, not any in person. I think that's not allowed, not legal in US to do that. Even to do that.
Mhm.
So all the interviews are through Zoom. So I don't have any experience like in person.
Makes
And
sense.
yeah, and through Zoom, I don't know like whether it is more intensive or is less intensive than those normal interviews, because I think like maybe like this video will have people like most of them are doing interviews in normal cases, because I think things are getting better. So I don't have experience with that. But for me, like the Zoom kind of interview, this is very intensive, like almost like half an hour when you finish talking with. Okay, let me first introduce what's the general uh, process for a full day interview. I think some university have 1 day, so it will be a full day interview. So it starts from in the early, as I mentioned, I usually sleep late and get up late. So I indeed prepare for the interviews like 1 month before the interview. So I start very early and I get up very early and I sleep very early.
Mhm.
So I try to get my like a clock correct. So I think if you have that problem, you should do that. So because like because when I was negotiating with the universities about the timeline, they usually say like 9 in the morning or 10 in the morning, and usually I was sleeping. I usually get up in 11 and I sleep very late. So I indeed prepare for that for a long time. I think that's some advice if you have a similar like lifestyle like me.
That's
Yeah.
very
Okay.
valuable. And did you also have any interviews in Europe or in Asia? Because I guess
Yeah,
then
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's a different story. They will choose some time like differently. Sometimes it was in the uh like afternoon or evening. Sometimes it's in the morning. So that depends. But I had most of the interviews in US. So I need to prepare for that. It starts very early, ends in almost in at like 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock.
Mhm.
So it will be a full day. So generally it will be like your host will talk to you and introduce the universities, like who are we, like what's in like what how the department look like, and what we're interested in doing, and some maybe personal introduction about himself. After that, like generally that will be 1/2 an hour with the host. So yeah, usually you will have a host from the university. That person will host your interview for the full day. If anything happens, you can approach to your host to so you ask questions like to your host. If for example if someone didn't show up or whatever, so after you're talking to your host, then you will be giving the job talk. Like that always lasts for like 1 hour, sometimes 1 hour and a half, depends on different universities. So it will be 1 hour slot or 1 hour and a half. I think you have to know that, and then you need to adjust your talk a little bit to meet the timing requirement. And after that,
And
after
with
job talk,
to very briefly interrupt you, so the 1 hour and 1 hour and a half, does this include Q&A or not?
yeah, I think both including Q&A. Yeah, but I think if they give you only 1 hour, then you can leave like shorter Q&A. If it's 1.5, you can give. I think you should not give more than 1 hour,
Makes sense.
because no one will like focus that long. I think at most you can give like 50 minutes, like even though you have 1.5 hours.
Mhm.
So that's my advice. You should not give like 1 hour and maybe 10 minutes talk and left 20 minutes for Q&A. I think that's kind of bad idea.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree.
Yeah. Uh yeah, so after the job talk, it will be one-on-one meetings. One-on-one meetings will be like it depends. So I have two type of one-on-one. One type is like you talk to your last professor, and then the next one is ready. So generally it will be 1/2 an hour. Depends on how many professors you will meet, but generally for most of the cases it will be 1/2 an hour. So I think most of the universities will be doing in sequentially, like 1/2 an hour, 1/2 an hour, 1/2 an hour, and then maybe you'll get some break. But if you are scheduled a 2-day meeting, sometimes you will be 1/2 an hour, like 10 minutes wait, 10 minutes break, and another 1/2 an hour. So it depends. I think that is decided by the university you are going to interview.
And I mean, you mentioned that sometimes there are are these 10-minute breaks in between.
Yeah.
But how did you handle this? Because sometimes you're chatting with a person, right? It's going very well.
Yeah.
And then the time ends, but actually it would be your break, and you don't want to tell the person that time is over, but you would also like to relax in your break, right? So did you have any kind of strategy that you used there, or did this just work out naturally? Or was it sometimes that you just also used the break for still chatting about research and so on?
I think if you really have a good time with the professors, for my experience, I will just let it go, like forgot about the time, just talk.
Mhm.
And if it's approaching the next one, I think generally people will know that. As far as I can tell, that everybody has the feeling about the time. But if you really have a good time, you like generally you will say, oh, like we both agree that we can let the conversation continue, that we will continue. I think everybody is aware of the time because you're professors, you have scheduled a lot of meetings. I would say like everybody's very busy, so they really know when the time will end. But I also have cases like we both have a good time, but we decide that we both know the time is up, but we both agree that we should continue.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's my experience. Everybody knows the time well.
Okay. Yeah, one question that I also had is when did you decide to apply for positions? Was this already something that you decided like when you were finishing your PhD, or did you decide doing this during your postdoc, or and also how clear was the decision? So did you also apply for positions in industry or only in academia? Because I think it's not always a clear decision, right? And yeah.
Yeah. I think the thing is that I know I want to find a research type of job. I I'm okay with research labs and uh, faculty position. I think I'm both fine. So I indeed applied for research lab and universities. But I'm pretty sure I don't want to be a programmer in companies. So that's for sure. So I did apply for. I interviewed at several research labs like NEC Lab, Microsoft, and um, Alibaba,
Mm.
uh, XG Lab, Damo Academy. I think that's a Chinese company's research lab in Seattle. Uh, XG Lab is also doing research in 5G. So I think we matched the interest matches. Um, so I have this idea for a long time. I want to do research and I want to apply for universities. But in the end, I decided to go to industry. No, not industry, academia. I think because I think industry is a place that every institution is different. But in academia, like the university, like what kind of life you can expect in the university is very clear, right? Like the funding, the student, the research, the tenure. I think everything is almost very clear, like what you should do and how you should do that, and what kind of environment you can expect. Of course, for different universities, the situation will be a little bit different. The department may focus on something and they don't like something, or they want something, or they have different requirement for your tenure. But that's very clear. Like you can ask what's the tenure requirement, but all the process, the basic requirement, the expectation from the university, all these kind of things is very clear, right?
Mm.
And there's not good universities, bad universities. It won't be huge difference between like the requirement, all these kind of things. But in industry, I think my experience is that every institution is different. The structure, for example, is different. Like how they do research is also different. And what's their expectation? For example, they expect papers. Like in research labs, they always have this KPI, right? Like they have some parameters or metric to value your performance. And what is included in that metric is entirely different. It depends on what the company is expecting from you. That varies from company to company, right? So some companies, they expect you doing research that can be transferred into the products. They don't care about papers. Okay, if you publish like in our domains 10 sequence, okay, it's good, but that doesn't help the company, right? So they will feel, okay, this is good, but not very meaningful. So sometimes, like if you want to get promoted, maybe it's not a good idea to publish a lot of papers, but you can still do research, but this kind of research should be more related to the product. Or sometimes they just have this high level goal, but they don't care what you're doing. If you publish papers, they still count it into your performance, and they value the papers. And of course, every company, they value the product, but some research labs, you can do some research that is not related to the product, but companies still value it. I think that depends like on the company. So you should think about it very clearly. And also the freedom, right? So are you free to choose the research topic? Are you free to do whatever you want? A lot of questions need to be answered, and you have to find those answers from them. Like sometimes they will be very clear, like we want this. Sometimes it's not clear, so you have to find those answers during your interviews. So for interviews at research labs, it's quite different. That's what I learned. So you should get a lot of information from them also.
I understand.
But
and
yeah,
could you perhaps also elaborate a bit on the process, like the interviewing process at this kind of research labs, how this roughly works? Is it comparable? Do you also need to give a job talk and have one-on-ones, or?
I think it has no difference from the but it depends, also depends, sorry. So for example, I interviewed the XG Lab. I think that's a very company style like interview, I would say. It's just also like you talk to a lot of people, like interviews, one round, second round, the first, like a lot of rounds. And these rounds doesn't need to happen in one day, right? So because generally, if you are a normal person, you want to apply for a programmer position, so the company will interview with several different people, like the HR, and then your people from your department, your boss, your supervisor. They will do it like one round. If you didn't pass this round, you will be your like interview process is terminated. So the rounds happens in different time. Like maybe it will last for 1 week, 2 weeks. So that depends. That's a company style interview. So you will talk to different people, but at different days. But for others, I think for those research labs, it's just no difference from the academic ones. But I think sometimes it will be different in terms of how many people you will be interviewed. Some institutions, they are small. Like some research lab, they are small, especially maybe especially in your area. is small, so that you will meet less people, and you have more gaps between different interviews, different one-on-one meetings, and the one-on-one meeting will be longer, maybe 45 minutes or even longer. That depends. So that will be different. But other than that, it's entirely the same as um, interviews from universities. Yeah.
Okay, that's very useful to know. Yeah, I would say perhaps we can look into the individual phases a bit in more detail. First of all, in terms of preparation, so how did you start writing your research statements, teaching statements, and so on? Did you have any kind of template or feedback from colleagues, or did you just start writing them from scratch without consulting other sources?
I think I may not did a good job on that. I'm not sure, but I just yeah, and indeed they have some templates. I look at several people from, and because some people they put their research statement online, right? So it's easy to find them. You can easily find a lot of research statement online. So I indeed definitely like look at their templates, and then I definitely write the documentation from scratch, because everybody will include entirely different content in their research statements.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think I just learn and just look. I just try to know like what I should include, and how long it will be, and how should I structure the whole documentation. I think began this when I was preparing for my job talk, because in your job talk you have to find a story, right? You have to present a complete story to your audience. So I was doing that simultaneously. So I was structuring the idea of my job talk, and also structuring the my research statement. I think I finished that quite soon, like maybe 1 or 2 weeks. Um, because if you already have the idea, like, okay, I'm going to write it in this way, then you just write it. It is quite so big, and
That's
yeah,
very
and
interesting.
yeah, I already
So
have an idea about my research, like how I should structure the storyline of my job talk. And actually, yeah, I think so. I have that idea in my mind even before I apply for my job talk. I will apply for the job. So yeah, I think that's quite smooth. Um,
I
yeah, I
guess in that
finished all
sense,
my documentation I think within 1 or 2 weeks. I think I should spend more time, maybe.
oh, that's quite fast.
Yeah,
But yeah, it sounded like you explained it. Also, it reminds me a bit on how I learned writing papers. Also, looking at this kind of examples of already written papers, right? That you learn the structure and so on, and then
yeah,
that you also need to think hard about how you want to write down like the story through the paper. I guess it's also
yeah,
similar for writing this kind of research statements and so on.
yeah. I think story matters.
Mhm. So did this also come naturally for you, connecting your research, or did you have to think hard on how to tell the story in your job talk?
I think it's not quite difficult, because I think my research in my PhD period is well connected.
Mhm.
So I have a very big topic, and under this umbrella, I have several different directions. So I think I was able to connect all these dots together quite naturally. So that's why I'm kind of fast on structuring the idea, but I'm not sure whether I did a good job.
Seems you
Uh,
did.
yeah, but it's quite fast, I guess.
Definitely faster than my writing process. How did you approach your letter writers, and what kind of people did you ask?
uh, I think ask all. I think I ask the collaborators I have to
Mhm.
write the letter for me. So it's quite natural. I
So I guess also your PhD advisor and
yeah,
and so-
my
I see.
PhD advisor, my supervisor during of my postdoc, and some collaborators. I
Mhm.
think I know them and they know me well. So I think I ask these questions. They are very happy to write it for me. Yeah, this also this process happens quite smoothly because we're just normal. We're not just normal collaborators. We also talk a lot. I think we are also kind of connected offline. Like we met when we are in conferences. We talk a lot, so we know each other quite well. So I think that's also good for them to write a good letter for me because they know me in detail. Like not just like we appear on the same paper. Uh, yeah, sometimes we have some collaborators, but I think they're collaborating with my supervisor, for example, not me. Maybe we appear on the same paper, right? I didn't approach for those professors because we're not that familiar. So I
Makes
approached
sense.
those collaborators. We know each other very well, and I know they would say they won't say no. Yeah.
What were your considerations when applying for institutions? You already mentioned that you applied for around 30 institutions, and did you choose them, let's say, based on their like perceived rank or on the geographical location? Like can you expand a bit on this?
Uh, yeah. I think I mainly applied at universities in US. I indeed applied for some from Europe and some from Asia. I think I would like to go back to Asia if I can, because I'm from Asia.
Mhm.
So I'm very happy to go back. But I think the interview doesn't goes very well, so I didn't get a chance. But I don't know. Like maybe I will go back one day, but I think that will be like years later.
Right.
uh, yeah. So I think that like different countries. Uh, um, I actually I did get an offer from Europe. Uh, but when I got the offer, I realized that I was thinking that if it's maybe I can go to Europe. But when I was getting off, I was considering it seriously. I found that I never been there and I never lived there. It's quite like life changing decisions. So I decided that um, I think I'm not brave enough to just go there like uh, directly. I think that's two brave decisions. But
Yeah, that's
for
especially what makes like what is currently very hard, right, with the Zoom interviewing season and so on, because typically you would be able to at least visit the institution and the place, right? But I guess this season this was not possible at all.
yeah, I
Makes
think
things
that's
difficult.
also the reason. It's very difficult for me to know like what's the life there and just to make a decision based on like people you talk. You have a lot of things to consider, right? Like the life and the people there, like maybe sometimes even languages.
Right.
Maybe like Europe, like most of the country doesn't speak English, right?
Not as a native
So
language in each case, yeah.
yeah, so lots of things to consider. I think I'm not that brave enough. Yeah. But for Asia countries, I know Asia countries very well because I'm from China. I spent 6 or 7 years in Singapore.
Mhm.
Uh sorry. So I think for Asia countries, I know them pretty well. I think the lifestyle, like I like the lifestyle there. And the universities are generally are very good also. So yeah. So but for I think for US it's likely that for US it's like it's a standard choice,
Mhm.
right? I didn't care about location that much, to be honest. Um, especially for university in good locations. Of course, is preferred, but it's very competitive. If the location is good, the university is good, then the position is highly attractive. So you will compete with a lot of people. So it's very hard to get in. So of course that's very attractive to me also, but I don't care that much. So in US, I care about countries, but in US, I just have no preference, strong preference.
Sounds reasonable. Yeah, perhaps reflecting a bit on your experience during this phase where you applied for institutions, is there anything that you would have done differently in retrospect, or would you have just applied to the same kind of institutions, or what's your advice there, or your reflections?
Yeah, I think I applied enough institutions. So I think I will apply this. But this year, I think this year is tough. So I think now, if I think I would do something differently. First of all, I would build more connections for my letter writers. So because I think for my letter writers, even though they are from good universities, but they are kind of junior. And that's why we know each other very well. So I will try to build more, broaden my connections. And I hope I can find some writer letters from good university and they are very senior. I think that helps more compared with a junior professor, because I think that's what I feel. I'm not sure it's true or not. So
yeah,
I
that's
think
also some advice I got, so sounds reasonable.
yeah, so I think I didn't have enough connections. So I think I should broaden my connections and get some senior professors as my letter writers. And also I feel that I should prepare the interview better, because when I was interviewing, I was also doing research. I cannot fully concentrate. So I only have 1 day or 2 days to prepare, because I still meet with my supervisor weekly. So I need to have some progress, even though I didn't have too much progress every week, but I have to have some progress. So, but sometimes I may have 2 interviews per week. So it's kind of struggling for me. And also I was very anxious during the interview process, right? So I think I should spend more time on preparing the interviews, like study each professor, like try to find some connections with the professors I'm going to talk, and maybe find for example, the connection could be like, I think should be came from his work, like how we can build future collaborations, all this kind of stuff. I think I didn't prepare enough. That's what I feel. And also I didn't prepare enough for the questions from different angles. Like, because like people are going to interview you is from entirely different, they will have entirely different background compared with you. So they may ask questions from their perspective. And their perspective could be very different from like what you concerned or what people from your domain concerns. Sometimes it's very simple, you can answer them, but sometimes it's some point you didn't even realize or you didn't care about that much, but those people care about. So I think I didn't prepare enough for that, because sometimes it surprises me when they ask the questions. So I think that's okay if you really know what you're doing. But I think that happens for me when I was talking about my future work. That's really bad, because for sometimes, because I was in a transaction, I changed my research topic from my PhD research to my postdoc research. and I changed my topic quite a lot, I guess. So I was also learning. So I just sketch some future directions I want to explore, but I cannot say that I'm a fully expert on those directions because I was also learning. I was changing my research directions, and I think that's something that's promising. But I already prepared a lot. I read a lot of books. I listen to a lot of talks. I think about it myself. But as a future directions, because I didn't do research like a lot in that directions, so there's a lot of things I didn't know. So when people ask a question from a different angle for a research topic, you are not that um uh like comfortable with. Like there's some, I would say that's future, right? So I have some questions open, like I need to answer, but I cannot answer it right now. So that's bad. That's one lesson I learned. So I was thinking about like if I really, because that's also my situation because I was changing my directions a little bit, even though I published papers on that directions. But you know, it's a new area, so you have a lot of things to learn. So I think in one advice is that when you talk about your future work, I think you should choose some topic that you are really comfortable with. Um, some universities they may prefer like some crazy idea, like some rocket science idea, like it looks like some like uh like crazy future and far away from now. Some universities prefer that, but I think you should you should choose those topic, I think, from your own area right now, and you should know it very well. But if you choose, and sometimes you can choose to not choose those topic, like very future, very rocket science. You just choose some topic that you can a little bit, I would not say like not future, but you should choose something that indeed you can do it for like maybe 6 or 7 years, but you're very familiar with, so that people ask some questions you didn't expect, you can still handle it well. But definitely don't do some follow-up work of your current work. I think sometimes people also criticize that, oh, your future work is not future enough. So I think this is a balance. There's a balance there. I think I didn't do that balance that well. So I think that's one lesson I have learned. I think uh, that hurts me a lot during the process.
I
Uh,
see. Yeah,
yeah,
sounds like it a very intense hiring season, like doing also research while applying for jobs, and then, like you said, like a very new kind of future research direction. But at least I think many people will profit by hearing your experience. So
yeah. I hope I can give some. I learned some lessons. Yeah. I think we should focus on one thing. Yeah. Otherwise, you can do both. Like not good. You will do both things not that good. So I think you should focus on one thing and do one thing good. That would be better. Better.
I see. And did you also have any kind of screening interviews before the main interview? So this kind of short phone interviews, or were you directly invited to a full day interview?
I think that depends.
Mm,
I've got both. So it totally depends. But I think in US this year, most of them doing screening before the invitation. I think it's easier to do this for interviews because these days you have Zoom. There's no, the cost is very low, so everybody doing that.
I see. And what was the format of such a phone interview?
Uh, I think it's the format is like they have a group. I think it's from the hiring committee. So they will interview you is usually like 4 or 5 or maybe 3. It depends. Like people interviewing you in the same time, and they all show up and they will ask questions sequentially, like one by one, and you answer the question, and then they allow you to ask questions back. And after that is done. It usually takes half an hour.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think you should control the time. I heard some people like do the interview quite fast, like they finish in like 15 minutes or 20 minutes. I think that's not very good. So you should control the time for you answer your questions. So it's best if you can finish it like near 30 minutes. That would be better. Yeah.
And in terms of questions, is it more questions about your research, or is it very general kinds of questions like what's your plan for the next 5 years or so? Or was it a mix of different kinds of questions?
Yeah, from my experience, I think most of the questions are general questions. Like they ask you to introduce your research. Yeah, they indeed sometimes ask you your future directions. I think that's a must. And why you apply? I think that's the 3 major questions I heard. I think if you answer these 3 questions, you already spent a lot of time. Other than that, I think it's just some random questions they will throw yeah at you. I think these 3 major questions I answered almost for every phone interview.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say let's chat a bit about the main interview. I mean, you already told us a bit about your experience there. But since you mentioned also at the screening interview that typically at the end you have some time to ask questions, right? So
Yeah.
what kind of questions did you ask when during the screening interview, but also during the main interviews when like the person you were talking to asked, do you have any questions?
Oh yeah. I prepared some questions, but I think that's general questions like um what the department look like, what's the weather, like how do you get student, how do you get funding, is there internal help from the university to write funding proposals, a lot of things like this, very general. I think I have a list. I think the best situation is that you don't need to ask those questions. Like I think for research labs, you need to ask questions to gather information from them. That's why what I feel you need to know like what do they expect, like how this whole process, how does the whole institution works. But for universities, I think we all know how the system works. You can ask you can still ask a lot of questions about that. I think uh, the best is that you two just talk and until you use all of your time. For example, if you like, you can talk about like your future collaborations. If you have prepared well, you can say, oh, you can say talk about some papers from that professor, and you can build connections. Say, oh, whether you can collaborate with each other later or not. I think if you have a good conversation, you can just talk for like half an hour. You don't need to ask questions, to be honest. Uh, I feel that.
Yeah, I mean, it's also like you said, even if they ask you, do you have any questions, you can still say, well, yes, I read about your research and
Yeah.
and then try to start a discussion in this direction.
Yeah. I think that's best. Of course, you can ask some general questions, as I said, like what's the department look like, how you hiring student, or what's the weather look like, what's the housing prices, like everything. I think that's you can ask, but I think that those information is not very difficult to get, and the professors they won't be impressed by those questions. You just like finish your job asking those questions. I think the best is ask questions about research and try to build a connection.
Very much agree.
Yeah. But you can still have a list about the questions you can ask if you really don't understand each other's work.
For, let's say, for how many institutions did you get invitations if you're comfortable answering this question?
Let me see. I think I would say 8 to 10.
That's a lot. Okay.
Yeah, interviews I have had. I didn't. I think that's the rough number. I didn't count. Yeah, because I interviewed industry and universities from different countries. So yeah.
So did you observe any differences between the interviews at different institutions? So what were the things that were common and were things that differed between them?
To be honest, it's quite difficult for us, like we're being interviewed, to notice the difference, because they won't tell you how did they judge you, and they won't tell you what they are expecting, right? So you just talk to them. They won't give you too much feedback, to be honest, unless you know someone from that institution. So for a lot of institutions, I feel that is no big difference, because you really don't know what happened inside. You don't know whether you get it or whether you didn't get it. That's something. But I think one thing I observe is that if whether the university gives you some offers is because they want to hire someone from your area. So of course, good universities, sometimes they don't care. They just want to hire the best. But most universities, they give you interviews, they give you job interviews because they want to hire someone from their area. And sometimes, actually, even unless you are a superstar and you really did a really good job in the interview, sometimes even though you are invited, but actually you are not the one they want. That's what I feel like. They already have a very specific target, but maybe they didn't find enough person from that specific area, so they will invite some other people, but they already have their target. So I think the best position is the position that matches. Like, so when you see the ads, so of course if you're a superstar, it doesn't matter. Like, as I said, everybody knows you, is fine. But if you're not, I think the one that you has the highest possibility to get an offer from is the position that matches you. So you can look at you can look at the advertisement to see what kind of people they are hiring, and if you have internal connections, you can see what kind of person they are expecting, so you can prepare for those positions. You should fully prepare for those positions. Like, sometimes other university, they invite you, it's not a good match, that it's very hard for you to get a position. So I think if you have internal connections, do go ask whether they're hiring people from your area. Yeah.
Okay, that's great advice.
Yeah, I think a match matters much more than your own profile.
Since you interviewed for quite a number of institutions, so if you look back to your first interview and the last one you had, like, were there any kind of differences in how you performed? Like, were you more relaxed for the later interviews, or did it become more exhausting, or like what was your kind of feeling like between these different kind of stages of interviewing?
Yeah. I read some advices saying that you should put your most important interviews after, like in the end. But I don't feel it's a good advice. Actually, I think I performed best during my first 1 or 2 interviews. Not 1 or 2, but first few. First 1 or 2 may not be good because your job talk is not that, you're not so fluent at your job talk because you need to practice, you need to gather questions from your audience. As I think after 1 or 2, you will get very comfortable with your job talk. So don't worry about your job talk. I think you will definitely get it. It won't be a problem for the talk after 1 or 2 interviews. I think my experience is that after several, like maybe 2 or 3, you'll get tired. Tired means because every interview, it will be like a full day from morning to the evening. I think every time after I finish my job talk, my interview, I was exhausted. I really cannot move. My head doesn't work. My body, I cannot even move. So I just want to I just want to lay down and sleep. So it's very tired. And after several experiences of that, your body has reactions to this. Your body don't want to do that. That's my experience. Like if you cut your interviews into half day, that would be much better. But full day is very tired. Maybe it's different when you are doing this in person. You can walk around, you can have dinner. That's actually kind of relaxing. But for this job interview, it's just one after one after one after one. So my body has reactions to that. Like if I know like I have another interviews, I feel really tired even before the interview. So I'm kind of feeling that I get enough. I feel like it's enough. so I really wanted the job, but your body has some reactions you cannot stop. So I think I was very excited for the first few job talk. I have a lot of motivations. I really want to do this job talk like really good. I really want to do this very well. And I think that's the best. You should put your interviews on those time slots in the middle. And later I was okay, whatever. Like, okay, interviews, I will prepare something and okay, let's just talk. So you will get tired.
It's surprising how draining the whole process is, right?
Yeah.
Lots of excitement involved, but that even contributes to it because you're typically also excited a couple of days before the visit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Did you have any kind of strategies to deal with this? For example, doing more sports or walking outside or doing some other stuff as well? Or
I think I did a bad job at that. I didn't go out that well that quite often. I was I was trying to relax myself, like watch some videos and listen to some music, and I stopped running during that process. I think that's a bad idea also. But I try to get my clock correct, like sleep early, wake up early, all these kind of things. But I think I did a bad job. I think I should do more, like to relaxing myself. And it's quite long process. It even though it like I think in March I almost have 1 interviews per week, sometimes 2 interviews per week. That's very exhausting. So yeah, I think I should do a better job on adjusting myself. But you are so tired, to be honest. Like interviews after interviews. So I think I should put those important interviews in the earlier stages.
I see.
Yeah. I think it may be different for interviews if you have a lot of you go there, you fly to the university and you talk to a person, and your one-on-one will be you walk to different professors, sit in the office. I think that will be better, I guess. Like it won't be that like tired.
I would say let's talk a bit about the decision process, perhaps. So, like, how did you proceed when you heard back from the first university? Did you start reaching out to other universities that you have interviewed with? And did they give you, let's say, a strict deadline and you had to ask for extensions? Or how did you handle the whole situation after hearing back?
I think the universities the offers I got, they are very generous. So I don't need to specifically ask for extensions. And I think after I get my first offer, I was quite excited. But I waited a while, and so I ranked several universities. Like I know, like if this one gives me, I will definitely go. And the second one, so as I mentioned, I want to go back to Asia. It doesn't work. So anyway, it's just like places I want to go, and if they give me, I will pick, I will choose. But I think see my situation, the decision process is quite easy. I got offer from Buffalo like in the middle, so I didn't worry that much because I know this is a place I would go if they give me offer. Like it's not the places I would never consider about. So I know I have some safe choice that I would definitely happy to go. So I finished the whole process, like interview all the universities, and I just target on some specific universities I really want to go. And I think if they give me, I would prefer Buffalo. No, I would prefer those universities, and I wait for their results. It's also quite fast. So after I get all the information, actually some university they didn't give me the final answer yet, but I know okay I'm going to Buffalo, so I just emailed and say okay, if you didn't give me an answer right now, just I'm gone. Yeah, so that's the whole process because I know like it's good if they give me offers, I can like use offers to negotiate, but if it doesn't, it's fine because I think I have a good conversation with Buffalo. They give me we have some negotiation, it's going on well, so I don't need that offers like to compete or whatever that much. So I just email them, okay, give me offer now or uh just like move on. Yeah,
I see.
it's polite not say that I'll give me offer now, but yeah, I
Yeah,
just
sure.
say if you have like if I want to ask my status, sometimes they need a few weeks, I would say just yeah, we just move on, like, and so it's quite easy for me to make the decisions because for the industry labs I think uh I finally decided to not go to industry labs. Um, also before they gave me the offer, I think because like Microsoft Research is a very good university, it's a very good institution. Uh, but I feel that it's quite similar with academia, and I think in the end I decided I prefer academia because as I mentioned, it's different institutions, they have their specific situation, and after all I decided I prefer in academia, so it's an easy choice for me.
Understand. Okay.
Yeah.
And in terms of negotiation, did you mainly negotiate the startup package or salary, or what kind of parameters did you negotiate for?
Maybe negotiate for the startup. I think the salary is like this is a public university, like so salary is very hard to negotiate. And as a starting assistant professor, I think you don't have a lot of bargaining power. If you have a competing offer, I still doubt that you can increase your salary, because this is defined by the government. I think if you want to increase your salary, you need a really good reason. So I got advice that, okay, you just focus on the startup. So I negotiated my startup. I increased the startup a little bit. Not much, I would say, because the startup is small in general, right? So like if you got one funding from the funding agency, it will be much more than what you can negotiate. It's just small amount of money, to be honest.
Understand.
So yeah, I think I propose, they agree, so we are fine. So this process goes very smoothly. I think the situation is that they really want me, and I also like what like to go there. So we both have mutual interest. So the process is very smooth. Um, yeah, that's why I just send emails to other universities and I just directly ask for the status. If they didn't didn't finish the whole process or whatever, I just stop the process. So I think that's because we have mutual interest. Yeah.
From this, it also sounds a bit that the decision process for you was rather easy once you heard the responses from the universities, or did you still need to consider for a while?
Yeah, for making the decision, I think it's a very easy decision, because I know some university I would go, and I know some universities if Buffalo give me, I will not go. So I think Buffalo is ranked very high in my list. So there's not a big argument about it. Um, yeah, if some other university gives me, and then I would may probably think about it. But this, yeah, I have a list in my mind, because this list I have discussed with my wife, so we both agreed beforehand. So there's nothing to worry about that much.
And since it seems that you were also in a two-party situation, could you also expand on how this influenced the decision making? So, for example, would your wife also like would be looking for a job at this place, or?
I think my situation is that my wife is also a PhD. She also get her PhD from Singapore. Um, I think my wife is okay to move with me. So because she just start his career like very recently, so it's not that difficult to quit her current job. And I think it will be a little bit difficult to find a position in Buffalo. But I think there's a lot of other things we can do, because there's also some visa issues. But I think we have been separated for a while, because I was doing a postdoc in US, and she was finishing her PhD in Singapore. So we separated because of that. And later the pandemic begins. So it's very dangerous for her to come back to US to go to visit me. So we just want to find a place we can settle down and we can move together. And she can find a position, and that's fine. So she is okay to move with me. Yeah, so that's our decision.
Also, I believe with your position at Buffalo, one advantage is also that you stay flexible in terms of
Yeah.
being able to move easier later on, right? So that's also,
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean,
I
besides,
think.
of course, Buffalo being a nice place. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you just how to say, you just have more choices later. For example, if you go back to China, it's kind of one-way choice, which means if you want to jump from China to US or to other places, it will be much more difficult, right? Um, because of the system, and because of the I didn't see a lot of examples if you are really a superstar. So
I think we can slowly wrap things up. And one question that I wanted to ask you is, what kind of roles did mentors play in your interviewing process? So did you, for example, get any like useful feedback during the process, or were you mostly on your own? Can you perhaps explain a bit about this?
I think I'm mainly on my own. Yeah, and I get some advices from my PhD supervisor, and my postdoc supervisor is kind of person that he will give some very general advice, but he won't give any specific advice, and he's not that person that he will talk to people and give recommendations. So it's not so I decide that I just do it on my own, and I will ask if I want to ask advices. I will ask my PhD supervisor, but my PhD supervisor is in Singapore, so he doesn't have a lot of experiences in US. So I think I learned a lot during this process. I learned a lot by myself. I made some mistakes. I learned some lessons. I hope I don't need to do it again. But if I decide to do it again or whatever, I think I could do it better. I also give some lessons. I also told some lessons I learned in the previous questions. So yeah, yeah, I think I should approach to more people to ask diverse questions, diverse advices also. This is another lesson I have learned. Just don't be shy and don't be afraid about losing face.
Was there any kind of experience that stuck with you? So any kind of big surprise or bad experience or good experience?
Yeah, I think in general, I didn't have bad experience. The bad experience in overall is that you're super tired, and you will get tired more and more tired when the process goes on. Like that's so. I think another lesson is like relaxing yourself, like practice regularly, so that you have a lot of energy to handle this stress, and I think mentally and physically.
That's
If
good advice.
yeah, if you have a lot of interviews, especially if you only have few interviews, and you will definitely get some of them, it's fine. If you have a lot of interviews you take, prepare it mentally and physically. And another thing that surprises me is that sometimes the university care about things differently. Like sometimes they will care about like as I think they're generally generous for a PhD or postdoc, fresh PhD or postdoc, but sometimes they care about like whether you collaborate with diverse people, and whether you collaborate with your own supervisors. Like for example, if all your paper is with your PhD supervisor, they will consider it. Some universities will consider this as a bad signs, that it doesn't show your independence. So that's I think that's not fair, because you can see the independence from when you talk to this person. You should tell from this person, like, did this person do the research independent by themselves from the research he has done, and from how he understand his research. You should talk to see whether this person is an independent researcher or not, but not just from the paper, because this is, I think, is not good practice for you to do papers during your PhD without your PhD or supervisor on the paper, right?
Right, that would be strange, yeah.
Yeah, that will be strange, and that will be not. I think my supervisor told me when we are doing PhD in the first day, I think my supervisor told me that you should never have a paper that don't know,
Mhm.
which means it's okay. Like you don't have his name on the paper, but you should never have a paper that he doesn't know you're doing. But later your name appear on that paper, because I think a PhD supervisor is a little bit different. Like when I was a postdoc, I think I have more freedom. I can do collaborations with someone else because I'm kind of independent. But PhD supervisor is a little bit different. So I think for most of the case, you will have your PhD supervisor on the paper, unless you're doing some internship and your PhD supervisor doesn't involve in this process. But I think that's something you should care about when you apply, especially in different systems, because I think in US people care less, but outside of US, sometimes people care about this. And yeah, and other than that, I think overall the experience is good. And yeah, I don't get stuck into anything. I think the overall experience is good. Everybody talks to you is nice. Sometimes even though they don't like you in person, but I think everybody's nice when they talk to you, because I think it doesn't mean this person is mean or whatever, but maybe they prefer another person. But I think overall the experience I have is nice. Everybody is nice. They talk to you nice. If you find that someone like if someone doesn't like you and they treated you bad, so you have bad experience from that institution, I think then you should consider your choice whether you want to go there. So it's very normal for a university that they don't prefer you, maybe compared with another one, but everybody should be nice, right? Like
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So if you feel, hey, if you have some kind of feeling that you'll have some trouble with some professors, uh, maybe you should talk to the chair about it, because I heard some cases that some professors are aggressive during the interviews. So I think if you observe that kind of situation, you can talk to the chair or the person, your host, about the situation, and then you should reconsider your situation, like whether you should consider whether you want to go there or not, because you have some colleague, you have some problems with some colleague. That's yeah. So we should be professional.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Do you have any other kind of final advice for future faculty candidates?
Yeah, I think to summarize, my advice is find good letter writers. Good letter writer means senior professors from good universities, and prepare it physically and mentally, and yeah, prepare well for your one-on-one meetings, especially for your future work. Think about it, how future it is, and do you really know about the future, like from a lot of different aspects. Just prepare for the questions from people from entirely different background. They will ask some question that will surprise you. So don't be surprised, and think about the your future work from a lot of different aspects. I didn't say your current work or the work you have done, because I think you are the one in the world that know that work the best. So no one can attack you from any angle, I believe. But for your future work, because you didn't do it, so just prepare it. If you're not very comfortable or very confident that you can handle the material of the future work, just make it less future and more comfortable that you can control from a lot of different aspects. And what else? Yeah, don't put, I think my advice is don't put your most important interviews in the last, because the process can be very exhausting. So if you have a lot of interviews, especially if you have more than 5 or 7 or whatever, you should put it in the middle, because in the beginning you're very excited about like interviewing, and later you will get more and more tired. Sometimes you will feel like, oh, you kind of refusing the interviews because it's really tired. Even you really want to do the interview, you really want to have the job offer, sometimes your body is like rejecting the interviews because it's really tired. What else? Yeah, I think that's what I learned during the process. Yeah, if you have questions, you can drop me email if you have any specific questions or you are interested in my experience.
Yeah, so thank you so much for all the extremely valuable advice, Yashong. And yeah, all the best for your start at the University at Buffalo.
Yeah. Good luck. Good luck to both of us, and good luck to the future candidates. Hope you can enjoy the process. Yeah, hope you can find a good position.